Welcome to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services.
This show focuses on sharing good news and powering the good in our community. Now here's your host, City Current CEO, Jeremy Park.
Welcome back to the City Current Show, powered by Higginbotham. I'm your host, Jeremy Park. We're always honored to bring you inspiring stories of individuals and organizations making a difference and powering the good. And we always love highlighting Strobel Volunteer Award winners. That's why we're excited to have with us the Youth Volunteer Award winner, Daniel Liu. He's the founder of Vanderbilt Peace of Mind. How are you doing, Daniel?
I'm good, Jeremy. It's nice to be here.
Well, congratulations. It's a big honor. We'll talk about what it means to you, but let's start with a little bit of your story and what led you to launch this effort and get involved as a volunteer. And so give us a little bit of your background, especially being a pre-med student at Vanderbilt.
Yeah, so I would say that my story starts even before pre-med at Vanderbilt. So when I was younger, I would volunteer in nursing homes a lot. And when I was doing that, my middle school used to offer these free bus rides to and from nursing homes after school. So you could wait for your parent there, but you could also volunteer there. And I think I've always just enjoyed working with older adults. The demographic of that population is similar when you start moving to hospice care. So in college, when I decided I wanted to be a pre-med, I also decided I wanted to keep working with that population. And so that's how I got into hospice work. And while I was working in hospice, I realized that, most of our student volunteers, they go to these facilities that are run by Alive Hospice, which is my local partner. And I realized that even though most of the volunteers go to those facilities only account for roughly 10% of the hospice cases in Nashville. So the other 90% of those cases are in patient homes that are kind of scattered here and there around the city. And every year there's around 5,000 cases that Alive Hospice takes on. So there's a big shortage of volunteers who are able to do that kind of at-home patient volunteering. And I also just think volunteering in a patient's home where they're comfortable and they know where everything is, it's a much different experience than kind of just working in one of those facilities and doing the daily maintenance tasks. It's a lot more intimate, and it requires a lot more one-on-one connection. So I just wanted to create a program that could alleviate that shortage of volunteers in those home patient cases. And that's kind of how I came up with Peace of Mind.
You also noticed a challenge in the sense that, okay, we've got these other students at Vanderbilt who want to volunteer, but they don't necessarily have the transportation to get there. And so talk about some of the challenges, but then the solutions that you're able to come up with.
Yeah, so I'd like to say it was some creative epiphany or something like that. But in reality, I just remembered how I always got these free rides in middle school to volunteer at nursing homes. And I remembered that. And I was like, oh, what's stopping me from doing basically the same thing? Because, Vanderbilt is a huge pre-med school. I think around 40% of its entering class comes in initially as pre-med, and every year there's 200 or so pre-meds that go on to medical school. And a lot of them are trying to get some patient experience. And hospice is probably the most direct form of patient experience you can get. You're literally with them, connecting with them, talking to them, and oftentimes you're the only person in the room. There's no other doctor with you telling you what to do. So I knew that hospice was a very valuable type of patient experience for students to get. And I knew that there would be lots of students on campus who would be eager to do that kind of work, but they just didn't have a vehicle, because most of us don't have a vehicle, and they just couldn't get to those 90% of cases that are at the patient homes.
Talk about then the solution that you were able to come up with to be able to, fill that gap.
Oh, yeah. So I made a very simple pipeline where volunteers can apply for an Uber voucher, and they specify, what within a radius of distance, how far away would it be from the center of campus. And from that, I kind of determined, okay, so how much would this Uber voucher cost at that specific time they inputted, because it fluctuates during the day. and like what time do they need to be there and what time do they need to get back. And so I just set up the system where if you put in all of that information of where you're going and what time and how long, it'll generate a Uber voucher of like approximately the price they would need, and with like a little bit of leeway so they don't end up paying for any of it, so they can get to and from patient sites whenever they want to volunteer.
Talk about the feedback that you're getting from your fellow classmates.
Yeah, so we've had about 35 classmates who have gone out and gotten trained to administer hospice care. And they've been able to volunteer in these unique opportunities at the patient homes where they otherwise would not have. So I've gotten a lot of feedback from both my classmates and also the volunteer coordinators at Live Hospice, where they're telling me, oh, like we're seeing so many new Vanderbilt students taking on cases, or even like students at the facilities volunteering because they can get to those facilities too now. So it's really nice for me to see Vanderbilt students going out and doing things like this, because I don't actually have to do too much work to send them like to and from places. It's very low cost on my time, but I think it makes a big impact for the amount of time I have to contribute.
Well, and speaking of big impact, talk about kind of the number of hours that you yourself have contributed, how those hours from the others are starting to add up pretty quickly. So when you look at how you track success, you're already making a big impact. So talk about some of those success metrics.
Yeah, so I've been volunteering for about almost 2 years now. And I've been volunteering during the summer and during the school year because I'm on campus during the summer. So in that time, I've volunteered maybe 350 hours, something like that. And I've visited around 20 different patients. But I've only been running the Uber voucher program for about a little over a year. And in that time, we've had 35 volunteers go out and volunteer for almost 600 hours and visit almost 200 patient cases. So I think that's a pretty big deal for me, because this is probably the most direct way I've been able to contribute to my local community, and I've been very happy about that.
Yeah, and I mean, all of that paints the picture of why you are the Youth Volunteer Award winner. And so when you talk about how this experience has shaped you, both the volunteerism, the relational piece of this, but also the leadership component, just like you alluded to, now you're seeing yourself as a catalyst to be able to create even bigger change, right? Like equipping others to be able to go and serve, and how that opens up their mind for possibilities to continue serving and making a difference. How has this experience changed you as a leader?
So in a very practical way, I think the how this experience has affected me is that it's taught me that it just takes one initial step to get into some kind of community involvement thing. And for me, that step was just, writing grants, asking people for money. If you look hard enough, there's a lot of philanthropic funds and places to go if you want, money to do some good in your community. And this experience has kind of just showed me, okay, this is the pipeline I can take to kind of start that change. And it's made it so in the future, when I have other ideas or new programs in mind, like I kind of know, this is how I start. These are kind of the general steps I take to make this into fruition.
Carry that into the piece of this from a volunteer perspective, the power of the relationship, just like you alluded to, because I want for others to be able to kind of feel what it's like to go in and serve, especially with the hospice and the in-home side of this. Like, what is that like? What is that relationship like to encourage others to do similar, right? To go in and
Yeah.
find their purpose, but to serve others.
Yeah. So the thing that I always tell people is that when talking about hospice cases and what does a typical day look like, the answer is that there's no template, and there's no typical day, there's no typical patient. And that's something I really love about hospice work, is that each person I meet, each new case I take, it's always, I don't know fully what to expect when I'm going in, because every person is unique and has their own lived experiences. Some people want me to play like the piano for them. Some people want me to read to them. Some people want me to read the Bible to them. Some people want me to read science magazines to them. I had this one patient who had an art gallery in her home, and she wanted me to kind of push her around so she could look at all of her paintings and talk about all of her paintings with me. So I think the wonderful thing about hospice care is that you don't really have to think in that mindset of, oh, this is what I'm going to do every day, because you're really just meeting people where they are and getting to know, their lived experiences and what it is that makes them who they are.
One of the other things that you do is an educational component. So training, speakers, talk about that side of this.
Yeah, so we host a variety of these expert-led panels. We have people who are counselors at the Vanderbilt UCC come in and talk. We have people who are doctors at the VUMC who've worked a lot with older adults come in and talk. So anytime I have a person who I work with on this, but anytime we find somebody in the area who might have some kind of interest or professional knowledge on working in hospice, we invite them to speak to all of our volunteers, and we call them like training sessions. So we've had a lot of those kinds of people come on.
When you look at where this experience is taking you in terms of your career, in terms of vision for the future, how has this shaped or is shaping your future for what you want to do in your career?
It makes me want to lead interventions in whatever communities I'm in the future. I don't think this is going to be a one-off thing. I'm obviously going to keep on thinking of new ideas, thinking of ways to address, gaps in healthcare access in whatever community I live in. So this experience and, how supportive all of my partners have been and how much they've been able to help me push this into being as successful as it has been has made me know that this is the kind of work I want to do in the future as well.
So you are the Youth Volunteer Award winner. It's the 2025 Strobel Volunteer Awards. And so what does that acknowledgement, what does that honor mean to you?
Well, I think it's a huge honor just because, when they announce who wins the Strobel Award, we also look at the videos and the impact that all of the other Strobel nominees have had. And I watched a lot of those videos, and there's a lot of amazing work that's being done by young people out there, and just to be highlighted in any way among that cohort of people, it's very flattering, and it's a huge honor for me. So yeah.
What would your words of encouragement be for others, especially for other college students? When you talk about taking a leadership role, creating action, raising your hand to say, hey, not only do I want to serve and volunteer, but I want to create a movement. I want to lead a movement. What would your words of encouragement be for them to be able to help move our communities forward?
Yeah, so I think there's three things that you should generally think about when you want to start your own programs or do good in your community. I think one of them is finding partners to work with who are just as excited about the ideas you are. The second one is being to communicate well with, people who might be able to support you financially if that's what you need. And then the third one is finding the correct need and the correct solution to match that need. So looking for where there's gaps in your community, where there are things that could be done better than they're being done now, and what's the kind of missing link in how you can make that better.
Is there a way the community can help support your efforts?
Yeah, I have an email address that you can contact if there's any way you want to partner with us or get in touch with the people at Alive Hospice who I'm working with to run this program, and I can share that email.
Yeah, please go ahead because we'll say it over and over. That way people know and can take action.
You can contact me at Daniel, Daniel .x.liu at vanderbilt.edu.
And so daniel.x.liu at vanderbilt.edu. Easy place to learn more and get involved with Vanderbilt Peace of Mind. Wrap up with, on your end, how this work has opened opportunities with Alive, because Alive Hospice, as you've alluded to, you're bringing in, really an army of new students and faces and people to make a difference. So talk about what the feedback has been from their side.
Yeah, so the volunteer coordinators at Alive, they've told me about, how bustling the facility in Nashville is with all of these Vanderbilt volunteers who are kind of there all the time now because we've got a lot of active volunteers and most of them go to home patient cases, but we still do have, 5 or 6 volunteers who kind of work full time at the facility doing making sure it's like always staffed and all the patients are getting their favorite snacks and just running around doing work and keeping the facility running well. So I've gotten a lot of good feedback at those facilities from our volunteer partners.
Well, it's just awesome to see you making a difference, especially this ripple impact for your efforts personally, but then obviously bringing it, to so many others who can serve and give back and make a difference to be able to support the nonprofits in the community and make a huge difference, in the lives that you all are touching. So, Daniel Liu, once again, congratulations, Youth Volunteer Award winner. Congratulations for the award. Thank you for all you do to power the good. Thank you for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Higginbotham Insurance and Financial Services is proud to power the City Current Show. We're a people-first company that protects what matters most, the families, businesses, and trailblazers that keep our community going. As one of the nation's top independent insurance firms, Higginbotham is a single-source solution for business insurance, employee benefits, HR services, and personal insurance that's customized for you. We're here to serve you, the people you care about, and your community. Call 866-377-1959 or visit higginbotham.com.